Today, as I said, we're going to talk about issues, youth, young people, what's happening in young people's lives. We as adults need to understand this new generation and what's actually happening out there, especially with the media and so on, the different things that are available to them. And so I just want to bring some topics forward for you, which you want to discuss as well. And we're going to go from there. Is that cool? Yeah. So the first one we want to really discuss is, the psychological development of youth these days. But this is not just for youth, it's for families as well as for adults, okay, for us to understand, but also for us to be aware of in our own lives to ensure that we aren't living like some of these young people, huh? All right. So tell us about, the psychological uproar. What happens?
Well, we wanted to talk about the whole teenage deal and what goes on because we know a bunch of you guys in church have teenagers or encounter teenagers here and there. We've got heaps of teenagers here at our youth, and they've all come along this morning, which is great. So I just wanted to clarify before we talk too much that
sure.
Me and Rachel aren't up here as experts. We're not experts, we're not parents, we don't have any kids or anything like that, but we do love youth and we do study youth as well. So we're coming up here as students, so what we're saying is stuff that we're, looking at other people and what they say about stuff. So, we're not experts, but we're just trying to come along and help in whatever way we can. So
that's all we need.
Did you want to talk about you're studying psychological stuff, so you can talk about that more?
So in the psychological development, looking at like adolescence, so that's like kind of ages 12 to... They say it's mid-20s, but we'll say 12 to 18 for here. And Erickson, who's a famous psychological studies development theories, he says it's actually the bridge between childhood and adulthood, which kind of makes it a really awkward stage because it's not like they're not children and they're not adults. They're somewhere in the middle. And so it's just a time that they're re-establishing their boundaries and kind of trying to separate themselves from from their families, especially. They're trying to go, okay, so mum and dad and my family have taught me all this, and that's what has been instilled in me as I've grown up, but who am I and what do I think about this? So they're trying to re-establish what they believe and what they think.
And I suppose you're saying that it's 12 to 20 something. I think that's pretty true, because when I know girls at 13, something switches on and goes, boom, there's a new person there, where's my daughter? Right?
Yeah.
And they change. At 15 for guys, and sometimes I know, some guys, I know one, for instance, 28-year-old for even ding, back to human again, right? Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like, that's a real hard time for them to find even their sexuality and their identity, is it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's something like 27 until your brain's not fully developed anyway, so you're still trying to figure out who you are and like where you're going and what your purpose is and everything like that.
Yeah, I think teenagers, being a teen, I know for me, because we just came out of teenagerhood a few years ago, it really is. You're trying to find out who you are. You've got everyone around you and stuff, and your parents know who they are and stuff. But you're going from, being a kid who gets his nose wiped by his mum and his lunch made at school and stuff, to you're an adult and you've got to pay your own bills and stuff like this. And it's like a transition to that.
Talking about those bills, it's funny because even, so many people when they're young adults, they think that they can start where their parents finished, in their cars, in their, you know what I mean? Like, so that we have to be careful of that. What do you got to say about that? How do you find yourself? Do you think, I want the best car now because I've been driving in one?
Yeah, definitely. No, I find more and more lately I see heaps and heaps of P-platers driving around in brand new SS Commodore Utes and stuff like that.
Into debt up to their eyeballs.
Yeah, and man, there's a big peer pressure to want to have the best stuff, to have the biggest screen TV and all this stuff straight up. But I think that's where kids need to know, help from their parents in that regards. I'm sure like parents are able to go out and do that stuff, buy new cars, get new TVs because they've been working for how many years and stuff. But I think, savings is a thing that's hard to... You don't know how to save unless you're taught how to do it, really. Yeah. Money management's a big thing as well. I think teens need help with that. When they start getting a job, they don't know how to manage their money by themselves and stuff, and that's why I don't know, we see a lot of youth, a lot of my friends from school straight out, they got $20,000 loans for a new car and stuff, and then a year down the track, they've smashed their car, and they're paying back these massive big loans. And
I heard a comment the other day, and someone said, the 0 to 40 is learning, 40 to 60 is earning, and 60 on is returning.
Yeah.
All right? And I think that's good, because you look around, 40 to 60 is normally when you start accumulating stuff and you've grown and you've learned to get out of debt and that. So up to 40, you're learning. Yeah. And we can't, you look around in your parents' garage, well, you got this, but you can't start there, eh? You know?
Yeah.
So you're saying peer pressure is a big thing, yeah, I suppose, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Peer pressure is huge. And I think something that you've got to understand is that guys and girls have very different brains. So when guys are looking for their identity, it's often found in what society calls as being a man, and society doesn't have such a great picture of that image. And so that's found in stuff like being strong and, lots of different stuff of what society calls being a man. And girls often find their identity in, like, beauty and physical appearance and social acceptance and massive thing in the media, sex appeal. Do they have sex appeal and are they sexy and stuff like that? So there's very different expectations on the boys and girls, and that leads into a whole lot of different peer pressure and addictions and stuff like that.
I tell you, I was watching TV, you might have saw it the other night, the youth, Gaga. Oh, Gaga. You know, I mean, for goodness, she doesn't even know what colour hair she's got every day. But, you know, you see there was a guy there, you're saying, you know, understand strength and be a man. And there was a guy on there and he had lipstick and the whole deal, you know, and he says, oh, I didn't know what to wear today, what makeup to put on and all this. And this is a guy, I mean, fair enough, we have this society that's out there, but, you know, I mean, that's not manhood, you know what I mean? And a lot of times because there's no fathers, there's no role model and no man in their life. Yeah. You know, to see that is sad. Yeah. And you see it in girls too? Yeah. Definitely.
Sexual identity is a massive thing these days, and confusion. And just to put it out there are no studies that have ever proven that people are born gay.
That's right.
None. They're trying and trying and trying, but nothing is conclusive. And I think, from my opinion, that comes across definitely when there's no strong fatherhood or motherhood, one or the other.
Or they've been abused.
Lots of cases been abused and don't trust the opposite sex.
Because I remember I was working at Soul Brothers Circus, you know, working around there, and there was a young fella there, and there was a homosexual there, and he got a hold of him and paid him some money and all that sort of stuff. And next minute, this boy, because it was his first sexual encounter, he thought, this is it, this is what it's about. And so then he went that way, you know what I mean? Like, he was a normal kid, this fella, you know? It's quite amazing, yeah.
And a lot of stuff is from like teenagers putting it on each other as well. Like, so you've got a tomboyish girl, and people will be like, "She's gay," and if she gets fed that enough, or a boy that's maybe a bit more feminine, that gets told time and time again, "Oh, he's gay," then that starts to feed into that.
I've seen something on one of the internet things or something, so that they're excited that they actually had my first female kiss for a female. Put it out there, is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I think a huge thing is, you know, we're talking about teenagers growing in their identity and stuff, and that's such a fragile time. Like, that really is. Like, you can have one guy say something to a girl that'll shatter her for life. Wow. And you can have a guy growing up and finding out his identity, and his dad can say something, and that'll shatter him for life too. And so, yeah, the media plays a massive part in how it shapes people, and something that, you know, if you haven't realised already, you will realise soon that it's becoming more and more popular to struggle with sexuality, because it is a struggle that a lot of people do. You know, your youth, the youth in our schools and stuff, are growing up every day listening to stuff on the radio like, I kissed a girl and I liked it, talking about you're born this way, you were born gay, so just celebrate it. Lady Gaga song, good on you. But it's popular to struggle with sexuality. It's popular to mess around and fool around with this stuff these days.
Sure. So let's go back to peer pressure. How do you find that? Like, how can you get through that? What can help with that? Kids at school
Yeah, well, I think peer pressure is a massive one. And it's huge because a teenager's community is mostly around their peers.
Right.
They've still got their parents there. And I think that's a huge thing for support. Having parents that just reinforce the truth over them, reinforce. I was talking with some of the guys from some of the young adults that we catch up with at church and stuff, and they were just saying some advice for parents is just that help them personally is just love, show love, and encouragement, because from their peers they don't get that most of the time. Most of what they get is negativity, their peers putting them down and stuff like this. Yeah. But yeah, I think friend choice is part of that. But in a way too, that's kind of something that parents can't really choose friends for their kids, I guess. Yeah. But just enforce responsibility for them to. I think
it's good though. I mean, the whole deal is that we found with our girls is that communication is one of the big things. Hey, love, like coming through those years and understanding, let them know it's okay to be different. Yeah. You know what I mean? I'm sure Kimmy won't mind me telling her this, but when she was born, she got straight into an operation and she had to have a colostomy. First hour, and so which means back then they had a scar from here to here. It's a huge scar. But we brought her up a whole life saying how proud she is and how individual and that she's been chosen. You know what I mean? She's different and she's so proud of it. And so many people can knock it. And it's really what the parents put in too. It's so important, yeah?
Okay. I think that's a massive thing that me and Mike were kind of talking about, like, as when kids are children, it's so important that they're brought up in those strong sense of morals, because when they get to teenagehood, they're probably going to be like, yeah, okay, thanks, Mum and Dad, bye. But if they have that strong just inputting from when they were children, that stays with them. Yeah. And I know from an example with like, my parents were not really, but they were strict with us as we were growing up. Like, we were disciplined and stuff like that. And when we got to teenagehood, they let us make our own choices, and we made mistakes. We made big ones, but we've come back, and all of us kids are serving in the Lord. And I know that I wouldn't be here without the prayer of my parents and the prayer of my Oma, and they let us, they obviously didn't let us go off and die and do the stupidest
let you hang yourself,
of things.
But just give you a bit of rope.
But they gave us room and they gave us space to make mistakes and learn from them, because I think that's really important.
So let's talk about alcohol as general. Like, how does alcohol affect this generation now?
Yeah, that's huge. You see ads and stuff on TV of trying to backlash against the youth alcoholism, but the truth is, alcoholism is everywhere in the youth. Every party basically on the weekend where you've got teens involved from 13 to 18, there'll be beer flowing like crazy.
Wow.
And
13.
Yeah. I remember in grade 8, my friends were getting plastered on the weekend and stuff. And so your teenagers, they're exposed to this. Not to say that they're doing it, but we've got awesome youth here. But their mates, they're doing it. They're doing it every weekend, and the chances are they're getting invited to, get drunk with them and stuff like this too. And it is a big thing, I guess. But I think something that can help in that regard is, we're talking about teenagers growing up. Teenagers have to start to be responsible for themselves in a sense too, because parents are the guardians of kids and stuff, and that's biblical.
True. It's very true.
But at a point, they have to. The truth is that parents can't control teenagers for their whole life, I guess.
No.
So there has to be a point where they talk through with their parents, with their teenagers, about boundaries that they have to set for themselves. Yeah. Because it can be. It was at school, at my school. I went to a Christian school, and there were kids bringing alcohol to school and drinking alcohol and Coke bottles and stuff like this. So you can't protect your kids from this. Yourself. They need to know for themselves where their boundaries are, where their lines are.
So Christian schools are the same. Secular, there's stuff going on everywhere, but it's just, some better morals, I suppose.
Just some crazy, we've got some stats for you guys. These are Australian stats of one teenager dies each week from the risky use of alcohol. 1 in 5 teenagers report drinking weekly, and it's at risky and high levels for acute harm. So they don't just drink to be social, they drink to get drunk.